Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, David. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
You sound great. Are you on like a microphone or something?
I just have an awesome voice. No, I connected.
Hey guys, this is episode 49 of the Indie Film Academy podcast. Now, I want you to imagine, I want us all to close our eyes and imagine something. You're sitting in your apartment one day, you and your wife, and you have always wanted to make a horror film, but you don't really know what the next step is. So you see these horror competitions and you say, you know what, let's enter into one of these horror competitions and see how it goes. Using just the resources, you don't have a lot of money, so just using the camera that you have and the equipment that you have, you're going to create a horror short and submit it to one of these competitions just to see what happens. And not only do you win the competition, but your video becomes a huge viral sensation. Suddenly, your, Vimeo videos and YouTube videos are being downloaded by thousands and thousands of people. And not too long after that, you start getting phone calls from people in Los Angeles that, want to have meetings with you. Now, fast forward a little bit to, being invited. You're invited to Los Angeles by New Line. And before long, you're sitting in a meeting with James Wan talking about making a feature film version of your short. This is more or less what happened to David F. Sandberg in 2013 when his short Lights Out became a huge viral sensation. And on June 22nd, the feature film version of Lights Out, starring Maria Bello and produced by James Wan, will be coming to a theater near you. This episode is sponsored by the Sales and Distribution Masterclass over at ifamasters.com. If you want to learn how to sell your film, that's the place to go. And by Audible. If you want 2 free filmmaking books, whether it's about screenwriting or the filmmaking process, go to ifafreebooks.com and you can get 2 free audiobooks. All right, now on with the show.
Welcome to the Indie Film Academy podcast, where it's all about learning how to make and market your independent film online. And now your host, Jason Buff.
Well, we came here, my wife Lotta and I, a little over a year ago now. But it all happened really fast because it was like, we got the call that, Lights Out, the movie is getting made. So can you get on a plane next week? So we flew over and, we went back home just over Christmas now, but that's it. No, it's been weird. Like it all happened so fast. When we first got here, we just, for the first 9 months or so or whatever, we stayed in Airbnbs around town, and it's just now this year that we've gotten a proper apartment to stay in.
So it was really like, let me ask you first of all, how is living in LA? Because I've lived there, and it was a very difficult. I'm from the U.S.
Yeah,
so it was kind of a culture shock for me. Are you guys like settling in and feeling more at home? Are you there permanently, or are you going to go back to Sweden?
Right now it's pretty permanent because we rented out our apartment back in Sweden, and as long as things keep going well here, we'll stick around,
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot different from Sweden, but both good and bad, The weather's always great, and there's a lot of cool stuff here. But yeah, we love it so far. We haven't seen a lot of the other parts of U.S. We've only been to California, and we went to Las Vegas for a day for CinemaCon. Right. So this is all we know. Like, we want to see more of the States.
Yeah, you got to go. Well, I'm from North Carolina, so you should definitely head that way and kind of see something. LA is it's cool, but it's very different from the rest of the U.S.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a unique place, it feels like.
Do the people that rented your old apartment know that was where the short was filmed?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of our friends who's actually in. We made a short called Pictured, and she's the creepy lady in the picture. So, she knows, and she thinks it's cool. Like, she has people over, and it's like, hey, this is the Lights Out apartment. And people are like, whoa. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, what I want to do is I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about, and I want to be very conscious of your time.
Well, it's Saturday today, so there's no work today, so that's fine.
Okay. So what are you guys doing right now? I assume the picture's locked, and what's kind of going on right now in what's your week full of right now?
Right now it's pre-production on Annabelle 2. Yeah, we're shooting in 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it's getting close. Lot to prepare.
Is there anything you can, I mean, not story-wise, but I mean, what, when you say you're preparing to shoot, what does that kind of mean? Are you working on, is the screenplay ready? Are you working on,
There's still tweaks being done on the screenplay, but also, we're casting people. We're scouting some of the locations we still haven't figured out yet. And this one has a bigger budget than Lights Out, so we're shooting it on a stage on the Warner Brothers lot, which is awesome. So the sets are being built, and there's, some budget issues like, hey, maybe we can, we're a little bit over, maybe we can cut out this room of the house, and a lot of stuff like that, back and forth.
Has the way you think about it changed now that I would assume that walking into Lights Out, the feature, you probably still had a lot of those ideas in your head about, oh, there's ways to save money and cut corners and do this, and you start working with a studio and it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, there actually is some money to spend on this.
Well, I had no idea. I'm so lucky to have skipped all of these steps, like I went from making no budget shorts with just Lotta and me back in Sweden right into making Hollywood studio features. Like I've never made an independent movie or anything. Like I've never been on a real film set until Lights Out,
right?
Which was scary as hell. And there was so much, I put so much pressure on myself as well. Just like, this is my shot, better not screw it up, because, then I'll go back to Sweden and never do a movie again. So yeah, that was intense, and it was just so much to learn. Like, I know how to sort of make a little movie, like how to tell a story, but everything around it was just new. The studio thing, and just working with so many people. I'm used to shooting myself and editing myself and doing all of that stuff, and now I had to work with other people for the first time, and just working with a writer. And yeah, I had I'd wake up in the middle of the night being all stressed out, and I have these things where I wake up and I'm half asleep and I hallucinate, and I'd see the whole crew standing around my bed just waiting, and I'd be like, wait, what are we doing? What? So hopefully now on Annabelle, I know a little bit more what to expect, and maybe we'll have a little less nightmares.
Right. So your confidence is better going through this. Did you look at the finished film and just kind of sit back and be like, holy crap, I did this? Yeah.
No, but that happened the whole time. Just during editing, we're cutting this scene between Maria Bello and Teresa Palmer. They have this argument, and it's like, shit, I actually directed this, a real movie with real actors. And there's been a lot of those moments, especially because of the beginnings of the whole thing. I'd see people, painting the sets and stuff like that, and I'd have this feeling of these people are working on this just because Lotta and I made this little short, just an evening back in Sweden, which is insane.
Did you ever run into, because I remember reading stories about when, for example, James Cameron was making Aliens, and nobody really knew who he was. So they were kind of like, oh, this guy didn't know what that, and he was making one of the best horror movies of all time. But the people on the set were just kind of like, who's this guy? He doesn't, and he was, I think it was on a British set too. So everybody was like, who's this, American?
I saw that documentary as well, which is, I love that. It's one of my favorite movies as well. But yeah, there were definitely elements of that, there was this feeling of some people on the crew, they're doing me a favor because I'm this nobody from Sweden, and they've worked on all these big movies, and it led to some friction in some places, where it's some arguments with the camera department, and where they, tried to tell me no, you don't need to do that, and it was like, no, we need to do that. I know what I'm doing. So
yep.
It led to arguments,
right?
About stupid stuff as well, how cameras work, and because they were telling me that there was this one shot that they were telling me you can shoot at high speed, and then decide in post if you want it to be slow motion or regular speed. And I was telling them, but no, because the shutter speed will then look, the shutter angle will look, it will look like, the opening of Saving Private Ryan if you slow it down.
Be what, 48?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so they were telling me that, no, the shutter speed is always the same. And it became this whole argument. And I was like, but then why do you need more light when you shoot high speed? Nothing changes. And it was like...
they're like, damn, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, just stupid arguments like that. But, it got better, further into production. Everything did. But when we sort of got to know each other and what we knew and didn't know,
Yeah. What were you shooting on, Arri?
Yeah, the Alexa XT.
Right. Was there ever, if I was you and I was kind of like, because you're a do-it-yourself kind of guy, I would just be like looking over everybody's shoulder and be like, okay, what do you guys do? And just like in between directing, just kind of like learn all this stuff.
This was my film school in a way. Like I didn't go to film school and now I was getting paid for it. So it was a lot of that. Okay, so you're lighting it like that. You're putting it there. Okay, cool. It's like, finding out stuff.
Is there anything that kind of maybe you can share that jumps out at you at like in terms of just purely like cinematography? Were there any things that you just kind of were surprised by that you having done things yourself, you're like, oh, I didn't realize this is actually how they do it on a film set? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, but I don't know. I think I read a lot. Like I read like the American Cinematographer and all of those things. So I try to keep up as much as possible. So nothing really surprised me that much. Mm-hmm. No, it was just being there and seeing it in real life, on a full set. That was interesting. But the lighting, it feels like it's the same thing when you're doing it yourself with what little you have. It's just on a bigger scale and you have more fun toys, really.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a moment when you were like, is there like an Ikea around that I can like go?
Yeah.
Because I think there's when I was there, I was there back in like 99, so it's been a while, but there was a brand new Ikea. And it was like a huge deal. This is off the point, but I just happen to remember that because I think it's kind of a funny idea of you being like, if you just get a trash can.
Yeah.
We do have money here, man.
Yeah. No, but IKEA is awesome. I built my trash cans here as well and bought some lights. But I found out that their light bulbs here don't dim. They do in Sweden for some reason.
The fluorescent?
The LED bulbs for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Well, some of them do, and you have to kind of look for them. But the U.S. is really, and I haven't lived in the U.S. since 2002. I actually live in Mexico now. I do everything from Mexico, but I'm amazed when I go back because here everything is so energy efficient and everybody has LED bulbs or fluorescents. And then I go back to the U.S. and it's always amazing to me that still hasn't kind of caught on. People have them, but they're not as, I don't know how it is in Sweden.
No, Sweden is, I think they've banned regular light bulbs.
Right.
So you can't even buy them anymore. You can probably, there's still some old stock probably, but it's mostly LEDs and compact fluorescents.
You guys are so, so far ahead with everything.
Well, yeah.
I actually lived in Finland for a while. Well, not for a while, but for half of a year. I went to school in Joensuu. Yeah. So we were up in that area for a long time, and we passed through Sweden. I got lost in Sweden for a while, but it's one of my favorite countries in the whole world.
It's great in the summer, but in the winter it's just gray and dark for so long. There's not enough sunlight, and maybe I'll miss it eventually. But now it's here. It's sunny all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got kind of tired of it being sunny I missed the snow, the coziness of having your coffee and being inside and,
maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Around Christmas time, I think you start kind of like when you have your first warm Christmas is always really bizarre.
Yeah. We went home for Christmas, but that was the thing as well. We were thinking that maybe when we're back in Sweden, we'll feel that, no, this is our home. We don't want to go back to LA. But when we got home, it was gray and dark, and we both got winter vomit disease, Lotta and I. So we were like just throwing up. Yeah, we couldn't wait to get back.
Okay, well, what I want to do is kind of go back and talk a little bit about your biography, I guess, and how you got into this. And I was wondering if you could start a little bit by just talking about where you were at, what led up to making the original shorts. And as far as I understand, was Lights Out the first short you made, or was it like after making a few more? Because it's listed in IMDb as like the third or fourth one you made.
I mean, it was the second one I made with that Lotta and I made together.
Okay.
So what happened was, I've been making little shorts and stuff ever since I was a kid, and borrowed my dad's video camera. But then as I got, older, it got more sort of difficult to, get your friends together and make movies. So I actually started playing around with animation, because that was something you could do all by yourself. And what happened was, when YouTube was new, this was in 2005, I made an animated short that became like a viral hit in Scandinavia. And that led to me getting a lot of job offers to do like commercials and videos for different companies with my sort of brand of animated humor. So I did that for a few years, but eventually I felt that, what I really wanted to do was live action genre stuff. So, Lotta and I, we made this movie called Cam Closer, which we really enjoyed doing. It's just a 2.5-minute short. And we tried getting, like in Sweden, you have the Swedish Film Institute that gives grants to movies, shorts and features, and that's pretty much how you finance films. But they weren't very interested in financing genre stuff. Like we tried several times to get just a little bit of money to make horror shorts, and they said no every time. So we figured, well, screw it. I have a camera and we can do stuff ourselves just in our apartment. So Lights Out was the second one we did, and it became this whole crazy thing.
Now, just to get into the nuts and bolts, because I was curious about this, you were working with the Blackmagic cinema camera.
Yeah.
What was, just from a purely nerd point of view, what was your decision to get that camera versus some of the other ones that were out there?
Well, I mean, I started when I was younger. I got like a consumer DV camera and started shooting shorts with my friends, and then I actually got a grant, like a cultural stipend or whatever it's called, so I could buy an HD camera. And I've never had a lot of money to buy cameras, but then I saw about this Blackmagic camera that was coming out that was shooting RAW, which was very interesting to me, because when you're shooting like H.264 stuff, you can't shoot the compression when you shoot dark stuff. It just breaks apart in the shadows. So I really wanted that camera. So I have a producing friend in Sweden who we got some money to do a short called Wallace, which is sort of like you could say that it's sort of like an anti-bullying film or something. That's the kind of stuff you can get money from this from the Swedish Film Institute. We got money to do a documentary about a Thai lady boy and like more sort of important subjects, I guess. But because we got some money to do Wallace, I could buy the Blackmagic cinema camera finally. So that's what we used to do shoot Lights Out. But the short we shot before that, Cam Closer, I shot on the Panasonic GH1. So I had to have a lot of sort of lights in that just to not have it break apart in the shadows.
I've always heard that the Blackmagic wasn't that great with shooting in low light, though. Is that right?
Well, not low light, but shadows. Like so. Okay. In Lights Out, when that bedside table lamp, there's actually like a 375 watt bulb in that, like a photo bulb. So what I did, so there's a lot of light, but it's not evenly lit, So I could, and that works out great. So if you're not shooting in, if you're not trying to bring the shadows up, but just bringing everything down instead, it works great. So you still need light, but you don't have to evenly light your scene.
Mm-hmm. So that was the same one you had with Closer, right? When you did the trash can thing?
Yeah.
And you just put that really close to Lotta's face so that everything else would be black, and you would just turn down the aperture or the...
Yeah, so that one I've used for all of our shorts, except for the very latest one called Closet Space, because that one I used a pocket camera for. So what happened was that when we moved over here, I didn't bring my cinema camera. And I was kind of missing my camera almost, when I was over here. So when I started getting paid for Lights Out, I bought the pocket camera. And we actually used that on for some stuff for Lights Out, the feature. And that's, now since I've been back to Sweden, I've actually brought the cinema camera with me as well. So now I have both the cinema camera and the pocket camera. Mm-hmm. But they're great cameras.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting on your video talking about the trailer. And by the way, I can't tell you how much it means to indie filmmakers to get to see the behind the scenes stuff, because it's, you're in a very unique position to be able to let us in on a lot of that stuff, because we're all kind of watching, and, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know, and, all those videos, there's just little tips that are kind of like, oh wow, I didn't know it was that easy to do that, or whatever, Yeah. But did you have any resistance to shooting with the pocket cam for those? You shot the old 8mm Super 8 stuff with that, right?
The only resistance was that I was shooting it. So what happened was we went to this abandoned hospital to shoot some stuff, and I was telling them, the studio, I could shoot that myself. I just need the actors and my little pocket camera. And they were like, they didn't really believe in that or something. I don't know. So what happened was we went there with the whole crew and shot some stuff with the Alexa, and none of that Alexa stuff is in the movie. So between setups, I would borrow the cast and just go shoot these little snippets of film. And that's the only thing that wound up in the movie. But the only thing they were sort of afraid of was me shooting it myself, just because of union stuff and all of that. If the cinematographer's union would be upset about me shooting stuff myself or something, but I don't know.
I've heard a lot about. I heard some of that, with some of the other stuff that I've been involved with, where it was I just wanted to go and shoot BRoll with a 5D or something.
Yeah.
And the cinematographer was kind of like, it's you're really not supposed to do that, But when you're used to shooting your own stuff, you don't even think about that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was also the thing with the effects, because we shot at a school where we weren't allowed to show the name of the school. And so I was telling the line producer that, I can just paint that out on my laptop, with open source software. But he was like, no, it has to go through the proper channels, and we don't have that in the VFX budget. So instead, the production designer had to paint or make a physical sign and actually hang it up over the real sign, which just felt stupid. But then when we were in post, I did a lot of, or some, 15 or so VFX shots myself. And then it was all right, because, the VFX guys, unfortunately for them, they don't have a union. So that was sort of all right with me doing a bunch of VFX shots myself. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Did they kind of give you their vote of approval with the stuff that you did?
Yeah, no one said anything. We showed it to people. The studio knew that I was doing some of the stuff, and they didn't mind. I did it for free, so it's a win-win.
That's always, yeah. Were you now one of the things that I see that you use, and you mentioned this in one of your videos, is that you like to use open source software like Blender.
Yeah, I mean it started out just because I didn't have any money. You know, I was a broke filmmaker. It's like, oh, hey, this 3D software is free, and it was a bit of a learning curve. I think Blender's gotten a lot better recently, but you know, since it was free and was like pretty much the only option, I sort of powered through and learned it.
Mm-hmm. Did you just learn by creating projects, or was there some sort of resource that you were using?
This is sort of a common. I mean, mostly if I wanted to find out how to do a specific thing, or sort of a specific thing, I'd just search YouTube for tutorials on that. Otherwise, it would, like, Blender Guru has a lot of cool tutorials, and you know, on Blender Nation you can find a lot of cool stuff as well. So, yeah, but mostly just doing, like, yeah, trying to find out what you can and can't do.
Right. Now, talking about horror in general, I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about why your shorts really, I mean, they're very effective in terms of, you know, having a kind of universal idea behind them, something that's very much, you know, something that connects with people, you know, no matter where they are. Can you talk a little bit about how you developed your ability to kind of, and, you know, it's not just like cheap jump scares. There's actually some, you know, there's a lot of, you know, story to it and things that are going on almost subconsciously while you're watching it. How did you kind of develop your technique in terms of, you know, when you're watching the short Lights Out, what were your influences and things that you were like, okay, this is how I'm going to, you know, really suck people in and then scare the hell out of them? If that makes sense. It's a long question.
When I started making horror shorts with friends, there were a lot of fake blood and stabbing and stuff like that, which I sort of got tired of. And I'm more into sort of suspense and sort of playing with fun ideas and stuff. So, I mean, just the main thing with the short was that, you know, we tried to have not just a bunch of scares, but just have that scare in the beginning to get you on the edge, just because then you know that, okay, anything can jump out at any moment, but then not have another scare until the end. So it's just tension up until that point, because whenever you have a jump scare, you sort of deflate the tension and you have to start over again, you know, because you can laugh because you jumped or whatever. I don't know. I just love mood and sort of tension, and try to keep that maintained for as long as possible.
Are you thinking to yourself, are you kind of like, okay, this is what I want people to be thinking at this moment or feeling at this moment, and just trying to kind of like, I mean, there's a great moment when Lotta tapes the light. And that's kind of like, that's a little bit of comic relief, I think. That, I mean, I don't know if it was planned like that. And it's very similar to the moment where she drops the, I guess it's like a pearl or something, or the marble or something into the crate thing. And there's always, there's like, it seems like there's it's like it leads up, there's something that's like, okay, we're supposed to sit there and be like, okay, what's going on? What is this? You know, and a lot of it's the thing that I love about your shorts is so much is done with sound. There's not these cheesy FX, you know, CDs or whatever, you know. I mean, it's all done purely like quiet, and you just hear these little subtle noises.
Yeah, I mean, I love playing with expectations, because there's nothing more boring when you watch a movie and you already know every beat is going to play, you know. So that's what I hope to achieve, to play with expectations. And that's something that I'm very proud of in the feature, that some of the characters, they don't do the typical stupid horror movie character stuff and get themselves killed. So, you know, people who have seen the film are like, oh, he's going to die now. And then it turns out, no, he's actually smart and he's going to, you know, get away. But also, as far as the humor, I've been doing sort of humorous animation for a long time, so I like to have that little bit of humor in it. And in fact, in Lights Out, the tape was definitely supposed to be a brief moment of humor, but the face at the end, to me, was supposed to be humorous as well, because it's this sort of face that turns off the lights, but most people they don't see the humor in it. But,
It's kind of a twisted humor, probably.
Yeah. No, but I like that because there's funny moments in the feature as well. That's not very evident in the trailer they released, but people, I love seeing the feature with an audience, because they laugh and they clap and they cheer, and it's the best. It's like horror and comedy are the best sort of films to see with an audience, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that one of the things that a lot of horror movies don't get right is the humor. They think that everything is supposed to be just, scary, jump scares, somebody walking with a flashlight and then jump scare, and they don't really develop the characters at all. They don't really work on the story.
Yeah, but I think you need that sort of dynamic range in movies, because then, if everything is just depressive darkness, then you need the lighter moments as well, just to have the difference between the two, and the same in comedies. If it's just silly the whole time, it's not as good as if you have some emotional depth at times. You just need variation, really. And I think no movie needs to be serious enough that you can't have some light moments in them.
What would you consider? I was actually watching one of your other interviews, and you mentioned jump scares that were just kind of cheap jump scares.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had kind of an example of what is like an earned jump scare versus one that's just a cheap one thrown in there for effect.
Yeah, the cheap ones are the typical, the cat jumping out from a cupboard or something, or the friend putting a hand on the shoulder, or just stuff that's not part of a scare, it needs to come from whatever it is that's scary. So, for instance, if you take an example from James Wan, from Insidious, the red demon face, that sits behind Patrick Wilson. I think
that's such a great scene.
Yeah, because that's really well made, because you have her telling this story and setting the mood, and then you even have that sound design, that crackly sound design, sort of creeping in a little before you see the face. You can have jump scares like, I think is it Paranormal Activity 2 or something, where all the cupboards open at once, and it's like, it's just quiet, just someone sitting in a kitchen doing nothing. It's just boring. And then bam, all these kitchen cabinets fly open. And of course you're going to jump because it's unexpected, but it's not really scary. It's not building to anything. So I think those are the sort of lazier jump scares, because you can make people jump very easily. They just have to be unprepared. But to put them in that mood and then make them jump is a lot more fun and effective.
So is there like a choreography to it that you're like, okay, here's this, like when you watch Insidious, and I want to talk about James Wan in just a second, and it seems very, I don't know exactly how he approaches it, but it seems like, okay, we're going to create this jump scare, we're going to put it together, and it's got certain beats to it.
Yeah.
Is there, like, as you're going through the screenplay and everything, are you like, okay, we need to have, certain moments that are going to be like this, and you just kind of start putting them together? How does that all work?
They sort of come naturally from the situations, but that's what I tried to do, at least, to just build from the situations the characters are in, and then not to have them just be like a singular scare, but actually have it be part of a longer sequence. And I think that's sort of James's MO as well, to not just have bam, there's a scare, and now this normal scene, and bam, there's a scare. But it's actually something that builds. You have things start going creepy, and then they get even creepier. You have a little bit of a scare, and then it just ramps up, and it stretches out for longer than just have those brief punctuation scares, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you work? Are you conscious of the compression and expansion of time as you're going through? Like, this is going to go by real fast, and then once we get to this suspenseful scene, let's just drag it out as much as we can.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. I mean, all scenes you need to find that sort of rhythm of when to compress and when to expand. But yeah, for when you're in those tense moments, you really want to expand as much as possible without it going overboard. You know, you can have people just walking through a hallway for way too long.
Mm-hmm. Do you do that in editing? You're just kind of like, okay, let's try it a little shorter. Okay, a little. I mean, do you like sit there and just nitpick exactly when's the right moment?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I have a pretty clear. I plan these things out in advance so much that it's not that much that can change in editing, I guess. But yeah, then it's finding the sound effects as well to work with it, and or the sound design, because a lot of movies have, and that's something that happened in the initial sound design on Lights Out as well, that the sound guys were putting in, they were sort of giving away the scares with the sounds. Like, they had sounds building up to a scare, or like they just had a tendency to put in too much sound and telegraphing everything that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a bit of a struggle.
There's nothing scarier to me than being in a horror film and all of a sudden there's like no sound. I mean, that's the scariest, scariest you can do, because you know something's going to happen.
Yeah, and that was the thing with the music as well for the feature, that I didn't want a lot of music for the scarier parts. Like, we can have music whenever else, but let's go quiet and let's just have the scenes play out as they are, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, moving back, I kind of jumped forward, talking about Lights Out. When that became a big, kind of a viral success, what were you contacted by other people? I mean, what was that kind of like when you realized that people were kind of sharing it? I mean, I think it had like 20,000 or 20 million views or something like crazy like that.
Well, first, sort of just random people contacted us and said they wanted to work with us, like actors, and like this one guy who does special effects for movies, like big blockbuster movies. It was like, hey, I'd love to work with you. And it's like, yeah, I'd love that too, but it's just me and Lotta in our apartment in Sweden with no money. It's like, how's that going to work? But then I actually, we started getting contacted by these people and by journalists, and then I actually said to Lotta, I've heard that people in Hollywood, that people get representation from Hollywood through like viral videos and stuff, that agents and managers, look at Vimeo staff pics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a day after I said that, I woke up and I had my first email from a management company here. And then it was just all at once. Like, I got contacted by managers and agents and producers and studios, and it was just insane. Like, I had to put together a spreadsheet with everyone I talked to and what was said the last time. Like, and yeah, it was so weird. Like, so first of all, I had to sort of choose manager and agent. Mm-hmm. Which was a great position to be in, because I had all these options, but at the same time I knew nothing about them, because when you Google these management companies or agencies, they hardly have web pages, because they don't want people contacting them. Like, they'll contact you if you've done something they're interested in.
Right.
So I got like an IMDb Pro account so that I could at least see like who these guys were representing. Just to get a feel for who they were. And yeah, it was just a crazy time, because of the time difference. During the day I just have a normal day, and then during the evening and the night it was just phone calls with Hollywood every day.
So you still had like a normal day job when this was all going on?
Yeah, I mean, my job at the time was pretty much a freelance animator,
right?
Which is code word for broke. Because, I was doing this on my own, and I'm terrible with charging for my work. So they were like, hey, so how much do you want to make this 1 minute commercial? And it's like, oh, well, it's not that hard to do, so I can't really charge a lot of money for it. And yeah. So, and that
like
was the
I'm
thing.
like that.
That was the thing as well, that once I picked a manager, they were like, hey, so can you fly out to LA? Because we want you to meet all these people and, go to all these producers and studios and stuff like that. And it's like, nope, I don't have money. So all I could do was sort of Skype with people for the time. But then I got in contact with a producer called Lawrence Gray. He was one of the first sort of producers I got in contact with who wanted to make something out of Lights Out. And, as soon as that started coming together, he paid for Lotta and me to fly out to LA so we could meet, James Wan in the studio and get everyone on board. And that, when we were out here, that's when I did the whole water bottle tour, as they call it, where you go to all these studios and producers and just have general meetings. And, they offer you a bottle of water as soon as you get it. So it was a lot.
How was that? I mean, was that like a total cultural shock for you?
Yeah. Like I didn't know what you're supposed to do, because it's just a general meeting. So it's like they ask about you and, who you are and like what you want to do. And then they give you their spiel about who they are and what they do. And then, you can get their business card and it's like, hey, let's keep in touch or something. And you walk out of it. Sometimes they might send you a script or something like, hey, maybe this script is something for you. And, but I just, it was all new. And that's the thing as well, that after, so we were out here for a little over a week, I think. And one of the last scheduled things was to meet New Line, the studio that was interested in doing Lights Out. And so after every general meeting, my agents would talk to, like check up on, so how was that? And the feedback they got was that I was very sort of reserved and that, I didn't talk a lot because, I was very Swedish. And
what do you want? I'm Swedish. Come on.
So I got this call from my agent and my managers, and they were sort of telling me that, it's important when you meet the studio now that, you can show them that you can be captain of the ship, that you can be a director, and take charge. And it's like, I don't know how to do that. So I just, tried my best to just talk a lot and be, and I was sort of telling them about this YouTube short I made that got banned from YouTube because it had a lot of, giant dicks and vaginas and a lot of sex and stuff in it. And, that made him laugh. So, I got to direct the movie, so I must have done something right.
But your manager wasn't like, okay, that was a little too far. Let's tone it down now.
Well, they weren't there, so they just knew that.
Right.
They called me back.
They knew it went well.
Yeah, they just called me back afterwards. I heard you killed it. And it's like, oh, okay.
So that was with New Line.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do these come? The project comes together. You're talking to the executives. I mean, where does James Wan come into the picture with all this?
Well, it actually started with when I was talking to all these people in Hollywood. One of the managers I talked to had this client who had written a script that I really loved, because even before all this happened, I read a lot of scripts. Like every year they have the blacklist with the most read scripts and most liked scripts in Hollywood or whatever. So I'd made sure every year to find downloads of these scripts so I could read them just to see what good scripts are like. And this guy had written one of those blacklist scripts, a horror script that I really liked. So I got in touch with him and started talking about Lights Out, because when we made the short, we had no idea what a feature would be, because we didn't expect to make a feature out of it. So I started talking to this writer here in LA who had an idea for it, but his idea was very big. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I don't think I could handle that as my first movie, and I don't think people would give me that kind of budget, just coming from having done nothing to doing such a big thing. So instead I had this idea of making a smaller, sort of more family-based story that could be made for less money, which that writer wasn't as interested in. But that writer put me in touch with Lawrence Gray, the producer, and Lawrence Gray was still interested in that idea. So I wrote a treatment based on that idea, like a 15-page treatment or something. Mm-hmm. And Lawrence knew James Wan, like he had been meeting with him, and they wanted to find something to do together, and he felt that this could be it. So he sent my treatment to James to read, which he liked. So that's when they flew me out here to LA to meet with James. And so we did that. And then because James has his relationship with New Line, that's how they came in. They work together a lot. And James has now his production company at the Warner lot to make, these kind of low-budget horror movies with New Line. And it just came together really fast and really smoothly, and people have kept telling me, that don't get used to that because that's usually not how it happens. But yeah, it just worked out really well.
Do you, off the topic, do you ever deal with like trolls and people who are just kind of being jerks about it is kind of a rapid rise to that kind of thing. That's what I was expected, that people would sort of hate me because I got this lucky. People should hate that. But instead, people, at least on YouTube and all the comments I read, people are like, hey, I'm so proud of you. And like, yay, you. And like, oh, okay, great. Like, there doesn't seem to be jealousy. There seems more to be like, oh, hey, one of us actually got in the door of Hollywood, Yeah.
Which is how I feel about it, because I certainly don't feel,
Well, I think if you had if you came out with sunglasses on, you were just like, being all egotistical now. You're like, yeah. They'd be like, hey, this was the nice guy. What happened to the Vimeo guy that I used to love?
Yeah.
Like, screw you guys. Now I'm a big time player.
No, I don't ever be that. Like, the other day I was meeting with this actress for potentially for Annabelle 2. And, of course, they set up this meeting at Chateau Marmont here in Los Angeles, where, you're supposed to meet celebrities. And it's just so awkward. Like, she was like, oh, well, let me give you my email. And she put out her hand because she wanted me to give my phone to her. But when she stretched out her hand, I was like, oh, she wants to shake my hand? Okay, so I shaked her hand. It's like, she was like, no, your phone. It's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I think I'm always going to be that awkward nerd.
No, probably. Once you've got one on your, behind you, I think the next one you're going to be a little more like, okay, you're going to find your comfort zone,
Yeah, hopefully. It's just, it's weird. It feels like I'm just like going along with everything and just, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, so far.
I certainly can't speak from, experience with that, but LA is a very bizarre town too, which is the way people act. And I was a, lowest of, I was working as like a PA on stuff, and there was just this whole way that people talk and act that I just couldn't ever wrap my head around, because I come from the South and we're just kind of we I don't know. It's just a different world.
Yeah. And, it's weird as well. Like, I hope I don't turn into an asshole, but like, when this started, I'd get a lot of people were sending me like their shorts, like, hey, can you watch my short? Or they'd send me scripts and stuff like that. And, I'd watch them. But now, the more time goes on, I'm getting so many shorts sent to me. Like, I don't have time to watch them all. It's like, sorry, like, I want to be a nice guy and helpful, but I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question about that. You're in a situation now where you're seeing a lot of shorts, and your shorts were all very effective. What are the things that you see with people who are making maybe indie films, indie horror films, and making shorts and things like that, that maybe is kind of like mistakes that you see people making in terms of, not being really effective as, maybe jump scares or being scary or whatever? Because there's a lot of filmmakers out there making shorts, trying to do what you're doing, and it's just not quite hitting the nail on the head.
I mean, I see the biggest problem that I see is that they're too long, or that they don't get to it quickly enough. Even the ones that are just 3 minutes or something. Like, I feel like with attention spans today, and especially online, you have to keep up the pace, and I think timing is just the biggest issue. The second biggest is probably sound, that people don't, spend enough time on sound. Like, a lot of shorts can look great because you have all these cameras and tools these days to make them look really expensive, but then people don't pay as much attention to sound. But yeah, timing and sound, I would say.
What did you use to, like, I assume you had like a digital recorder. Yeah. When you were shooting. What did you use for like the kind of jumps, those sounds?
Well, actually, I didn't have, for all of these shorts, I don't record sound when we're shooting. I replace all the sound in post. And that's something I started doing as soon as I could edit digitally, like on a computer. That's how I did it, just replace every sound, even the dialogue, just to have that control. Like, I may not be necessary to be that anal about it, but that's been how I work with it. So, and also, I've always wanted to make sure that I could put these up without any copyright issues and stuff like that. So I've always been sort of afraid of like sound effects libraries or royalty-free music and stuff like that, in case they weren't actually royalty-free and stuff like that. So I've made a point out of trying to record as much sound myself that I can, and just try and make my own music, even though it's not great. It's at least I know I can use it as much as I want. But yeah, I had for a while there, I used to record a lot of sounds just on I had a Zoom H4 and just brought it with me when I was going places, just because, hey, maybe I'll find a cool sound. Yeah.
You like Ben Burt? Sorry. Are you a fan of Ben Burt?
Yeah, absolutely. He's awesome. But yeah, just trying to gather as much sounds as I can to keep in my little library.
Do you, one of the things that I think is also really effective is not showing the monster,
Yeah.
That I've seen a couple of shorts recently where it was like, oh, okay, that's the thing that we're supposed to be afraid of, and you look at it and you're kind of like, okay, that's not quite,
No, yeah, like we did this short called Coffer, where I kind of regret showing a monster at the end there because I don't think it was needed. But yeah, in general, I try to not show it as much, and even in the feature, you don't see a lot of what she actually looks like. Because, I mean, what you imagine something to be is always going to be scarier than whatever rubber suit you get made, even though we had like Oscar-winning makeup artists create it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember, I think it was Spielberg who was always saying that, what you bring, it doesn't matter how scary the monster is, what you have in your head is always going to be a lot scarier than anything we can create on screen.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
So I want to get into a little bit about talking with James Wan, and if you could describe meeting with him, because you sounded very casual about that, but I mean, I think that for most of us, it would be kind of a big deal to meet, somebody like James Wan, and to be able to kind of just see how his mind works. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's a lot going on in his mind. I mean, that first time I met him, he had so many ideas. Like, he was just saying, hey, maybe we do this, maybe that, and maybe this could be that, and this, and they were so like far apart from each other, and like some were like totally sort of opposite from the treatment I had, while others were very much in line with it. But it's like, so walking out of that meeting, I was like, am I supposed to incorporate all of those ideas into the script or into the story? Because I can't do that. Like, there were just so many and so varied, but guy just has a lot of ideas. No, but that first meeting was great, except for just freaking out with all the ideas he had.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, yeah, he's cool. I mean, he sort of started out with a short as well. He made Saw as a short and got to make a feature over here. And it was just telling me a lot about just to have fun with it, because it's a weird business and a weird process. So, but I couldn't really listen to that on Lights Out because I was freaking out. It's like, oh, this is my chance. I better make it awesome. But maybe for Annabelle, I'll be able to be a little more relaxed and have fun with it.
Well, psychologically, what did you have to do to kind of just say, okay, I'm going to deal with this and just kind of move forward? And even though things are freaking me out, I'm sure there was a certain aspect of your personality that was like, that has like this imposter syndrome, which is something we all have.
Oh yeah.
Of like walking in somewhere and being like, oh, well, I'm just waiting for these guys to figure out that, I'm a fake or whatever,
Yeah.
And that's not just that's everybody's kind of has that,
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with this, it's like, how come they're letting me do this? Like, do they think I have more experience than I actually do? Because I think maybe it was an advantage that I was from Sweden, so for all they know, I could be huge in Sweden and have a big career there. But it just was this weird feeling of just going along with everything. Like, there was no way to prepare. So it was just, all right, I'll just go along and try to figure things out as best I can, try to be as prepared as possible, do a lot of storyboards and just figure everything out as much as possible in advance. And, there's just so much weirdness. Like, when a little over a year ago, when we first got here, I was invited to this, I'm with the same agency as James Wan, and Furious 7 had recently came out, where it had made like $1 billion or something. So Lotta and I were invited to this party in James's honor. And we had just gotten here, and the film wasn't green light yet, so we had no money. Like, we had borrowed from our families as much as we could just to, buy food and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So we had no money at all, and we got invited to this party in this mansion in Beverly Hills, and it's like, Vin Diesel was there and Adrian Brody, and it's like, what the hell are we doing here? It felt like we'd snuck into this thing. And so we were just sort of standing there talking to each other in Swedish, like keeping this appearance up of just casually talking, but we were just saying things like, this is so fucking weird. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we,
Like, oh, hey, Vin Diesel, how's it going?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
And that weirdness just hasn't stopped. Like, when we went to CinemaCon recently, because now we're doing publicity for Lights Out. We got to go on a private plane chartered by Warner Brothers, and there was like Samuel L. Jackson and Christoph Waltz and all these celebrities, Jared Leto, and on a private plane going to Vegas. And it was just, this is so weird. Like, how can you ever get used to this?
Is there anything that, like, kind of being in that world that surprised you, that you kind of didn't think would be the way it actually is? It's kind of a vague question, but
yeah,
or are people that are like that, celebrities and stuff, when you're kind of hanging out at that level, is it like, are they just kind of down to earth and just like kind of normal?
Yeah, well, I don't dare to talk to them anyway, so it's like, yeah, I talked to two Swedish celebrities just briefly, Alexander Skarsgård and Joel Kinnaman. But otherwise, it's like, I just feel so out of place that I can't, I just keep to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they seem like normal people, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I want to go a little into pre-production and just talk about that a little bit. What was involved? How long was that process? Was it like, okay, when you're setting it all out, I assume that just from a complete outsider's point of view, you've got, who's kind of your chief person that you're leaning on? Are you dealing with like a line producer? Are they giving you this is your certain amount of time that you have to work on this. You're working on the screenplay with your writer. How does basically pre-production all come together? And then, what are the kind of ways that, what are the things that you're doing?
Yeah, first it's sort of like a soft prep, I guess, when you're still just figuring out the screenplay and you're people are slowly starting to get hired. Like, a line producer was the one you sort of talk to a lot during pre-production. And then all of a sudden you have a pre-production office with all these people. And, my first sort of thought before all of this was like, is this just going to be like me stepping onto a film set and not knowing what the hell's going to happen or how things work? But during prep, I don't know how many like real prep weeks we had, 6, 7 or something on Lights Out. But during prep, there's so much going through everything that once you get on set, you know the movie inside out. You have all these, you do camera tests, you do like tech scouts where you go through the whole location and just tell everyone everything that's going to be shot and how it's going to be shot. And so it's just a lot of preparing and a lot of answering questions, because that's something that the New Line told me before it all started. Like, I went to dinner with these 2 executives and they were like, you're going to get a lot of questions. Just answer them right away. Don't let them pile up until this big thing, because even if you answer them wrong, we can always fix that on set. So, and all the questions were like, what kind of car does this person drive? What kind of shovel does this person pick up in this scene? Like, stuff like that. Like, there's a shot where someone picks up a shovel, so you get presented with like 5 different shovel options, and it's like, I want that shovel, and it's just so much weird. So many questions, and it started. I got burnt out on giving answers, so I was actually buying a hamburger late one evening, and I couldn't decide on the menu which burger to get. So I called Lotta, my wife, and I was like, hey, just tell me what burger to get, because I'm done with answers. No, so it's just a lot of going through everything and figuring everything out, lots of answering questions. And the weird thing on Lights Out was that there were some casting issues that ate up a lot of the pre-production time, unfortunately. So, for example, Teresa Palmer wanted to do it pretty early on, but then there were some issues like, for example, we found out that she didn't actually have a visa, or like a work visa, because she's Australian. So like, she's married to an American, so we all figured like, well, she's married to him. But it turned out that she, you have to be in the country for a certain number of days, consecutive days. And because she's an actress, she travels all over all the time, so she hasn't had that opportunity yet. So while that was figured out, we had to look for others, and it was this whole thing where people got cast very late. In fact, Maria Bello was cast like a week or 2 into shooting the movie. So the first time I actually met her was like 5 minutes before her first scene. So it's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, and action. So, but I was really lucky in the fact that we had such great actors that, it's not like we needed all of that prep. Like, they got into it really quickly and were awesome. Because, New Line was saying like, this is the first time we've never had a table read before the shoot, because we just didn't have the cast.
Oh, wow.
And it also meant that, like, Billy Burke is in the film, and he was cast even later than Maria Bello. He plays her husband. So all of the, like, family photos in the house had to be just green pieces of paper, and then we had to, put that in post. So that was insane. But, it worked out.
Well, talk a little bit about, I think one of the things that intimidates directors, it certainly does me, is the idea of, working with an actor who is at that level, you know. What did you learn by, working with those people, and what things can you share about what you learned about the directing actors?
Well, I mean, something I've learned since I was younger is just that you're never going to get what's in your head. Like, you have this sort of vision about, I mean, the whole movie really, but with actors as well, that you hear them in your head saying things a certain way, but you're never going to get that. I mean, if you try to just get them to say exactly this in exactly this way, it's just not going to be good. So my approach is just to not go against the grain, let the actors sort of find it or whatever. So for the first take, I'd not give them much direction at all and just see what would come out of them. And if it was too far from what I wanted, we'd talk about it and we'd try it again, But in general, they were so great that it wasn't very difficult. It wasn't like I had to pull a good performance out of them. It just sort of came naturally, and we just tweaked it a little bit. So, yeah. But yeah, it was sort of intimidating. Like, Maria Bello, which I'm a huge fan of. I love A History of Violence, which she's in, and like she's in Prisoners and all of that. And, but she's a pro. She'd come in and just nail it. And she would also sort of talk about, like, almost give tips, or like when she was working with Gabriel, the little kid in the film, she would sort of come over to me like, he's doing this and this. Maybe you could talk to him about that. So, which was very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've found also that on some of the indie, really low budget stuff, if you have one really good actor in there, a lot of times they kind of become the default, like, acting teacher for everybody. So it's like, if you have a film, get at least one. I mean, in your case, you've got a bunch of great actors, but I mean, in that case, it's like everybody's game goes up when you have somebody who's really. Yeah.
No, both Maria and Teresa, play mother and daughter, were just awesome. Like, we have this scene where they're sort of a little bit of an emotional scene between them, and it's like, everyone who was there and saw that was just like, yes, we got it. This is going to be great, because they just play off each other really, really well.
And you can just sit back and go, look at what a good director I am.
Well, it was a little bit like that, because we had, when they were shooting this, we were shooting this argument at a dinner table, and we were shooting it sort of handheld, sort of free flowing, and sitting by the monitor looking at that sort of handheld argument with great acting was like, hey, this feels like a Lars von Trier film or something. It's like, it's awesome. Yeah.
They were like, who?
Yeah.
Is that some Swedish guy? I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm just kind of amazed. I'm kind of living vicariously through everything you're saying.
Yeah, I plan on doing a bunch of YouTube videos just talking about all this, because this is stuff that I would want to know. Like, how does this happen, and what's the process like? And I really want to talk about that, but most of that will have to be after the movie comes out, just because I want to go so in depth with the whole thing, story points and everything.
No, that would be amazing. It's one of the difficult things I'm doing. This is probably the first time I've talked to a filmmaker about a film that hasn't come out. Usually what we would do is just kind of jump in and start dissecting everything,
Right,
but I'm really looking forward to hearing, hopefully, that would be great if you could just kind of explain the experience and put things together.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I've got a bunch of questions here. How are you doing for time? You okay?
I have all day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this will be our first 24-hour
Yeah.
interview. We'll just sit here. People will tune out. Now, let me see here. I've got a bunch of different things. I wanted to continue talking a little bit. I don't know how, I've talked to a number of filmmakers who have worked with, kind of people that have big names in horror right now. I talked to Daniel Stamm about making The Last Exorcism, with Eli Roth, and James Wan and Eli Roth are kind of in similar stratospheres right now in terms of the horror world. Yeah. Was he kind of, hands-on with stuff? Would he come on set? And one of the things that I was thinking about was like, wouldn't it be cool if you're working on a horror film and you could say, I wonder how James Wan would do this thing. And then you just say, well, let me give him a call and like, let him see this or whatever. Were there any like moments like that where you're like, let me kind of see what's in his head? How would we put this together to be better? Or was there anything like that?
A little bit, but I mean, he's a really busy guy, so
yeah.
he wasn't around all the time, but he did come by the set a few times, and he did have a lot of input. Like he'd give me sort of his input, like maybe you can shoot this scene all in sort of one take, because that is usually very effective when you don't cut a lot when you have these sort of scary sequences. So we'd try that and. So he did come in and sort of come up with some advice, and in pre-production he was around for a little bit as well and had some ideas. Like if you've seen the trailer, you've seen there's a neon sign gag, that the neon sign goes on and off and she sort of blinks in and out. Mm-hmm. That was actually his idea, because my original idea was that it would be cars going by outside, and the sort of headlights would sort of sweep across the room, and that's how she would sort of appear and disappear. But the neon sign was a really cool thing, because you get more of that on-off thing instead of this sweeping light. It did make it hard to shoot, though, because, a neon sign would be on a set time interval. Mm-hmm. So at first we tried shooting it like, okay, it's 4 minutes, 4 seconds on, 4 seconds off. And Teresa would have to sort of act to that number. It's like, okay, so the first time it goes off, you do this, and the second time you do this. And it just didn't work. So what we had to do was I would just call out on or off. So I would watch her performance, and it's like, okay, now it would be good if it came on, now it would be good if it came off. So I was sort of afraid that people would go, what the hell is wrong with that neon sign? Because that sometimes it's off for 10 seconds, sometimes it's off for 1 second, but no one's that's seen the movie so far has complained. So, it worked out.
Did you ever talk to him about any of his films, like The Conjuring or Insidious or any of those? Or did you have any, like, I would just be like, I would have like a million questions. It'd be like, okay, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. Just shut up. Leave me alone. Did you like ever kind of talk about his stuff? Because I mean, obviously, when I watched Lights Out, the first kind of idea I had was this is kind of in the same genre, kind of in the same mindset as Insidious. And I don't know if Insidious, I don't know which came before or whatever, but did his films influence you? Or Saw, obviously.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. But what we mostly talked about, I think, was Saw, just because that was the closest to my experience, because that was his first movie, his first time sort of coming to LA and doing all of that. So we would talk about, the difficulties of getting that made, and just, trying to give as much advice as he could on just how to get through your first movie. But I mean, his was a little bit different as well, because he couldn't get into the country right away. So like he had to do like all the pre-production he was stuck up in Canada waiting for his visa. Mm-hmm. So he had like a couple of days of prep on site before they had to start shooting. So I'm really glad that didn't happen to me. And we didn't really talk about stuff like that. He would sort of just give more of a general advice, like, try to shoot more overlapping stuff because I'm so used to shooting and editing myself, so I'll only shoot like, okay, now I know that I'm going to cut to this, and then I'm going to cut back, so I don't need all of that. But so he was sort of adamant that, no, but try to actually shoot everything through because you don't know what happens in editing, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. When you were on set, who was the guy that kind of, I mean, did you have a pretty good relationship with your assistant director? Did you feel pretty comfortable after a while?
Yeah. No, I got along great with everyone. And my assistant director is coming back on Annabelle too. Like, I have no idea. That's the first time I've ever worked with an assistant director, so I've no idea if he's good or not, but I like him, so he's coming back. No, it's just the first time working with everyone, really. Like, I've never had someone else edit what I've shot before, so that was weird, or someone else shoot what I'm making. So a lot of times it was almost like, oh, just let me do it, you know?
Yeah. Did you kind of sit in Video Village and just kind of watch from there, or did you actually get up and direct from the camera?
Yeah, I'm always sort of near the camera. I would only look at a monitor. I mean, I'd just look at the focus puller's monitor because it was closer. I didn't want to go all the way to Video Village. I mean, the good thing about the editing was that I'd never edited with Avid on the Avid.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I wanted to just take over, I didn't know that software at all. So I just had to sort of talk to the editor instead.
What was that process like? I mean, how did you? Did they start editing before you finished directing? What was kind of the timeline on that?
No, they were editing while we were shooting. You know, like they got material continuously. So as soon as we had wrapped production, I went to the post-production office and I could see the first cut of the movie, and I got super depressed. This is the worst thing ever. And everyone was telling me that that's how everyone feels. But now starts the real work, to make it into a good movie. Because everyone was saying, like, well, when Ben Affleck saw the first cut of Argo, he was like, my career's over. And then he won Oscars and stuff. And it really is like that. Because while you're shooting, you have this vision in your head. And then you see what someone else has put together. And it's like, oh, no, I wouldn't have put that there. And that, it's not at all what you expect. So you get really depressed. But you keep working at it. You take things out, you move things around, and you tweak it, and then eventually it's like, hey, this isn't bad. But yeah, and I got really depressed during the shooting as well, because here the thing is that whenever we make our shorts, Lotta and I, mm-hmm. halfway through the short, I'll just no, this is shit. I don't want to do this. And she'll have to convince me that, no, we're actually going to finish this. And then we do. And then you're like, hey, this isn't bad. We've actually made something cool. And that happened on Lights Out as well. But because it was a feature in my first Hollywood film and everything, it was so much worse. Like, I got so depressed for a while there in the middle. It's like, this isn't fun at all. Like, I don't want to make movies. And the producers took me out to dinner to sort of cheer me up and talk about it, and that the whole Ben Affleck Argo thing came up there as well. It's like, you're gonna like it when it's finished. And I got back to it and powered through, and then got fun again, and it turned into a good movie. But it was just so overwhelming, working with all these people and being like questioned on the camera stuff that I was talking about before, and just, it was so overwhelming and just so much work. You work 15-hour days, so you really become depressed. But then once it's over, you're like, yeah, let's do that again. So it's weird.
Do you remember a moment when you really started feeling that depression? I mean, was it just that things weren't coming together the way you wanted them to?
Yeah, or just, I don't know if it was exactly what it was. It was just dealing with so much at once, and those really long hour days. I think I was the most depressed after like a 15-hour day. Came home at night. It's like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Just from exhaustion.
I think that was a big part of it, because I can't really point to one thing where it's like, oh, that just fucked everything up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just hard to get through. But I did it.
I mean, I think that's really super important for other filmmakers also to hear, because not many people will, they don't talk about that aspect of it, that, and you can look back through time. I mean, look at, Star Wars or all these, amazing films. I was listening to some interview, I think, with Robert Rodriguez about talking with Quentin Tarantino and how depressed he was that Pulp Fiction was just this piece of shit. And he was like so depressed about it. And he was like, it doesn't make any sense, and it's da-da-da-da and whatever, and it's like, it seems like a pretty common thread with, making a film, that you will go through that, Yeah. And even the shorts, like you said, like the short too.
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing is to not give up, even though, when you're in that moment, you are 100% sure that this is never going to be good, that this is going to be shit. So it's really hard to continue, especially if you're making a no budget thing at home, because then it's easy to just, let's, go watch Game of Thrones or, do something else instead. But you just really have to power through and get it done, because you can't know how you will feel about it when it's done while you're in the making of it. You just can't, even though you're 100% convinced that you can.
Right. Now, I'm just curious, how old were you when you made Lights Out, the short?
So I was...
how old are you now?
I'm 35. So
okay.
33, maybe? 32, 33?
Okay.
I guess it was the end of the deadline for that competition that we entered it in was December 30th, 2013. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it went viral in the spring of 2014.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, was there any day in particular that sticks out that was like the hardest day you ever had on the set?
I guess it must have been that 15-hour day when we were just, trying to, because we actually shot the finale of the film, or a big sort of scene, pretty early on, and that's what took so much time. It was so hard, and I don't know if it was the same day. Maybe it was the same day, but when we were having a big argument with the camera team as well, because we were shooting one of those scenes with the neon light when she disappears, so you have to lock the camera off, shoot it with the performer, and then shoot it without the performer, so you can do that VFX thing of her going in and out. And we'd moved the camera, and then we were going to shoot one more time of her appearing and disappearing, and they were telling me that, no, but we already shot the clean plate. And I was like, but we've moved the camera. We have to do another clean plate. And they kept telling me that, but we already have it. We shot it before. And I was like, eventually I just snapped, and I was like, just put the camera here, turn it on, and now you come in here, and now now roll the camera, cut it. And I just had to take over and I was, kind of mad.
Do you have, looking back now on the process and kind of being a little more weathered, do you feel like you changed a lot from the first day to the last day in terms of just the way you were doing things?
Yeah, and I just realizing how much you can ask for or demand even, because it was this whole thing that I've talked about recently, where I wanted this scene to be shot with candlelight, like the little boy Gabriel, he has a candle walking through the house, and everyone was telling me like, no, you can't do that, you got to light it properly. And I was like, oh, okay. But then James came to the set the day we were shooting that, and he was like, hey, you should light that with just a candle. And everyone was like, oh, okay, great, we'll do that. So it's like,
yes, Mr. Wan, sure, whatever you say.
Yeah, so I've just realized that you can demand more. And something I discovered as well was sometimes when I was just tired and things weren't going as well as I wanted to, I'd be like, all right, that's good enough. Let's move on. But then everyone would be like, good enough? No. Like, that's like the worst thing you can tell the film crew, that it's just good enough, because they want it to be really good. You know.
Did you say that on the set? It's good enough.
I did, and I got that reaction. It's like, what do you mean good enough? Like, and then
like, I'm Swedish, but it means something else to us. We say it in a different way. Right? Did it sound bad? I don't know.
Yeah. No, so it's just realizing how much you can actually demand or sort of get people to do it. Because the thing as well is that no one on set is going to care as much about the film as you do. Just because for most of these people, for most of the crew, it's just another job, you know, like they've another movie and they'll just soon move on to another thing. So of course, if there's an easy way to do it, then that means they'll go home to their families earlier. And, you know, you can't blame them for that. But sometimes you have to do things the hard way, the way that'll take a lot of time just to get it right. And, yeah, I've sort of learned to demand that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I've seen with a lot of, you know, these films, the director is usually the one person who has the least experience of being on a set.
Yeah.
You know, because all these other guys have been working for years as, you know, crew members and doing stuff. That's
a weird thing. Like, there's two jobs on a film set you can get with no experience. It's a PA and the director. So, which is super weird to be on that film set and feel, I mean, it's reassuring as well to feel that you're the least experienced, because at least everyone else has made movies before. But yeah, it's really weird that a director can get that shot while others have to go the long way, you know, to get good at cinematographer or you know, yeah, it's a strange business.
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of see that going right and going wrong with different people, you know, because there's a lot of directors who are around now.
Absolutely.
I mean, I look at like Gareth Edwards, for example, is probably one of the closest examples to kind of your story, you know, which was he went out and was making stuff on his own, and then, you know, he made Monsters with a little, you know, the AX something, the Sony, with a lettuce 50 millimeter on his, you know, and then just took it into, I mean, I see a lot of similarities with what you guys have done. And, he was the one that kind of inspired me to kind of get back into filmmaking after, you know, I'd been doing graphic design for years, and I was like, wow, look at what this guy did, and just kind of shot handheld and put all the effects in with motion tracking and everything. And then I saw what you did. And when I first discovered your videos, I didn't know that you were making a feature. I think the first time I saw Lights Out, you were already in LA, you were already making it, you know, so I didn't even know that part of the story after it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's quite interesting that Hollywood seems to be so prepared to take chances on new directors, which is, probably a bad idea sometimes. I mean, I wouldn't have given me a movie, because that's the thing back in Sweden where we couldn't get money. You know, I went to one of the film centers in Sweden and wanted to get like a couple of grand to make a short, and they said that I wasn't experienced enough to apply for the sort of professional money, and they said, yeah, maybe you can apply for the rookie money, but the rookie money was for people under 30. So suddenly I was like, okay, I'm too old for the rookie money, and I'm too inexperienced for professional money. So what do I do now? While Hollywood, you know, they see a 2.5-minute short I directed, and they're like, hey, here's $5 million. Direct a movie. And I was talking to a DP who shot A Single Man, among other films. He's from Spain. And he was saying the same thing. Like, he was 27, and no one in Spain wanted to take a chance on him as a DP. But in Hollywood, they were like, yeah, you can DP A Single Man. So for some reason, they're stupid enough to take chances on people.
Do you find that, like, I mean, what did you notice when you were in that world of producers and executives and stuff? Are they kind of dialed into that whole world of, YouTube people and Vimeo? I mean, is that kind of, have they really started focusing on finding their next people from there? I mean, obviously with you.
Yeah. No, that's something I've discovered here. That you hear a lot of talk about what's currently, the viral video, or people get discovered from that a lot, it seems. I mean, seems to still be pretty rare that one goes to a feature, but you can still, get in a room and get meetings and people and maybe representation by doing shorts, because they seem to keep track of what's out there and what's popular.
When Nate would talk to you about your shorts, and I don't know if you and James talked about this, but were they commenting on the amount of views it had and the amount of, like, the viral sensation, or did they specifically say, oh, well, this guy knows what he's doing because look at this short and look at these things that these are kind of advanced things that you were doing, versus somebody who just started doing, horror,
I don't think they cared that much about the views, just sort of the effectiveness of the film, really.
Okay.
And then I know James was at first a little hesitant, because he was like, yeah, it's a cool short, but can this guy tell like a 90-minute story? Which is, the treatment I wrote was what persuaded him. It's like, that's what made him go, okay, this guy knows a longer storytelling as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Did you, when you were after the treatment, is the actual screenplay pretty much what you had in that treatment, or was it changed?
It's Eric Heiser, who wrote the screenplay, kept very close to that treatment. In fact, there's even, like, in that treatment were bits of dialogue and stuff that actually made it through to the film as well. There was one scene in there where we needed like a little scene between Teresa and her boyfriend, and sort of like a placeholder, I wrote this scene where they have an argument about a sock or whatever, and that actually made it through the film. Like, I was convinced that would be the first thing that he would throw out, but he kept it in. So yeah, it's pretty close.
Was there ever a moment when you were considering, or you thought about actually writing the screenplay for it? Or did they want to just go with somebody that was a little more seasoned?
Like, I felt that I didn't want to push my luck. I was like a first-time director, so they probably don't want a first-time writer as well. Yeah. And it's the same thing with Lotta, like, she's been the star of every short, but like, we didn't want to push her to be the lead in the film, because, we just didn't want to push our luck, because it felt like, oh, we have this chance now. Like, if we push too hard, then they might go, oh, well, then we're not doing the film. So it's like, a lot of that, like, yeah, sure, I'll just work with the writer. But it turned out great, because I loved Eric's work as well. He, while I was doing the water bottle tour and while the agents were sending me scripts, the one script that I really wanted to make was one that he had written called Bird Box. And
was that the Blacklist one you said?
Yeah, well, that was another writer, but yeah, that Bird Box was on Blacklist as well.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So, no, Lotta and I even made a little, like a trailer for Bird Box to sort of to pitch that to the production company, but I'm not really sure what's happening with that now. I think Andy Muschietti or whatever, who made Mama, is up for that.
Right.
But he's doing It now, so I don't know what's happening with that. But that was a really good script, so I was very happy that he wanted to write Lights Out.
Yeah, well, that's another example. The guy that made Mama is another guy that like had a short and kind of did the same trajectory that you did. Yeah,
and got Guillermo del Toro as a producer. So yeah.
It's not too shabby.
No.
How has Lotta dealt with L.A.? Is she feeling comfortable there? What does she think?
Yeah, no, she's loving it as well.
Does she ever get recognized?
She does. Even I've started to get recognized. We were at the Grove here in LA the other day, and these three guys came up and said, "Hey, are you the director of Lights Out?" And it's like, yeah. Hey. No, so that's weird, but Yeah.
Do you like that? I mean, do you like being recognized?
So far, yeah. I mean, as a director, I don't think you ever get to that point where it's annoying, where, I mean, I wouldn't want to be, Brad Pitt or someone who probably can't go outside a lot. But yeah, so far it's great.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, you just, going to in LA, it's totally different though, because you'll go to the grocery store and you'll see like 5 or 6 stars shopping there, and it's like nothing. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, just down the street here, I walked by Christopher Nolan the other day. It's like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You're like, hi, I'm a fellow director.
Yeah. We're in the same union.
Yeah, I used to go to a grocery store that was like down the road from like kind of near Melrose. I used to live. And there was a grocery store there that I would always go, and I would pay more because I would always see a star there. But I would just kind of sit there and like watch them and be like, wow, that's
like the same thing here. We see a lot of celebrities down in the grocery store. you just play cool. You just, it's them. Did you see it's them?
Yeah, well, now you can do that on your movie set. You can be like, hey, he's going to talk to me. What?
Oh, he's coming over here.
It's like, you're the director. Why are you hiding?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
It's the same thing. I have a friend who's like, hey, can't you get me that guy's autograph or whatever? It's like, no, I have to play cool. Like, I know what I'm doing when I'm meeting all these people.
Well, is there like do you kind of have a dual life now? I mean, is it like you go back to Sweden and it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's just David and, how's it going and everything. Then you come back and it's kind of like you get to be on a set and have all these like famous people and everything.
I mean, so far I only been back for 2 weeks at Christmas. So like, I don't know. I'm just here all the time now. This is my life now, but it's awesome. It's like, I want to see how far I can take this Hollywood thing, because I can always go back to making no budget shorts if this doesn't work out.
Well, you can always talk to the people that didn't give you your fund. Yeah. And be like, hey guys, remember me?
Yeah. I've made 2 Hollywood movies now. Can I get some money?
And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah. I haven't done any Swedish movies. So.
Yeah. That's the real, the sign. Are there any Swedish horror movies that people like did? I mean, I know you probably, I've seen your other conversations, and I know you like, mostly kind of American-based horror films and stuff. Are there any horror films from Sweden that people should check out?
Yeah, I mean, one of the more famous ones is Let the Right One In.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
No, they do some of that stuff. Usually it's based on books. I guess that makes them more comfortable in doing genre stuff like that. And, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo just isn't really horror, but that's more of a genre film. Mm-hmm. What else is there? There's not a lot of horror made in Sweden, I don't think. It's mostly sort of movies about alcoholism and the difficult life of immigrants and, divorce.
Well, what are your like favorite, like what, if you had to go back and like pick, say like 5 films that are the ones that influenced you the most, what would those be?
Well, just from my childhood, it's sort of action, horror, sci-fi, Aliens, Terminator, The Thing, Die Hard, the stuff I grew up on, which I still love. And, I just, last week, I think it was, they were showing Aliens on the big screen here at ArcLight, and that's always been my dream to see that in a theater. So I had to go, and it's like, yeah, man, this movie still holds up. I love that movie.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
What, did you say Alien or Aliens?
Aliens. I mean, Aliens.
Yeah.
It's one of the best as well.
Both amazing.
Yeah.
Aliens was the first movie that I ever saw. I'm a little older than you, but I mean, I saw that. I got into the theater with my family to watch it. And I realized about a couple minutes in that I was way too young to be in that movie, because I didn't sleep for a week. And to this day, it's still the most horrifying movie, just in terms of, scaring the hell out of me. But I think it came out at what, like 96 or something? 86?
86, yeah.
Yeah. And I would have been like 12 or something like that. But I remember going to see that, and oh my God, it was so scary. Yeah. And that's probably one of my favorite screenplays too,
Yeah.
I mean, James Cameron just like has this way of creating character. Anyway, I don't want to get off into that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I'm a Cameron fanboy as well. So.
Okay. So let me just ask you this, and I'll kind of wrap it up. With Annabelle 2, are you, do you go back and look at the original movie? What do you do in a creative sense? And I know you're not writing the screenplay for it, I assume.
Yeah.
But
no.
I assume you have a lot to do with what's going to be in the screenplay.
Yeah, we're working together with the writer and all that. Without giving too much away, the story of Annabelle 2 isn't a continuation of Annabelle 1, really, which was enticing to me, that it's its own thing more, Mm-hmm. But of course, I had to go back and rewatch Annabelle 1 and sort of get into that and see what they did, and Conjuring 1 and 2 as well, because Annabelle is especially in Conjuring 1, which is where she first appeared. But yeah.
So is James wrapped on the Conjuring 2? That's like a done deal now, right?
Oh yeah. They even had like a surprise screening in Austin the other day, and yeah. So that opens on first sort of, they have their premiere at the LA Film Festival on the June 7th, and then on June 8th we show Lights Out. So that after June 8th, people are going to know there's going to be reviews and stuff, I guess.
So what is your biggest, like, how do you feel? What's your biggest fear right now? Are you kind of like just waiting for that?
I am. The weird thing is that everyone is so confident that it's going to be a hit that I think they're going to jinx it, because it's tested really well, and like everyone's like, no, this is going to be a hit. It's like, you don't know. Anything can happen, So, I hope that people like it, but,
Well, I think one of the really interesting things about it, and not a lot of other films can say this, but it's already had, because of the short, it's already got people who are kind of aware. You know what I mean? That's a huge, in terms of marketing of a film, that's got to be like a huge, huge deal for them. I don't know how much they think about that when they're doing it, when they're like planning stuff out, but it's like, okay, well, this has had a bazillion downloads, so everybody already knows the short,
Yeah, we've had to push that a little bit because, like, I don't get to cut the trailer. That's all marketing. But so they had this trailer that they wanted to show that was similar to this trailer, but it didn't start with Lotta and the light switch. And we told the marketing department, like, you have to put that in the trailer and put it at the top, because there's going to be people out there that may have seen the short, but they might not remember the name or whatever. But if you have that scene with her doing the same thing as in the short, they're going to go, oh, I've seen this before. Like, I remember that. So we really had to sort of push them to put that in the trailer. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. I think the Warner's digital marketing department are more on top of it, with all the views and all of that, because they wanted to get all the stats from my YouTube and Vimeo pages, and I'm not sure what they're doing with that, but probably something cool. So yeah, it's not been at the forefront. It's been more, the marketing seems to be more pushing that it's produced by James Wan, because people know Conjuring and all of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just lost my train of thought. I had a question for you. All right, it's gone. Sorry. Right. I had something really important to ask. Give me one
Marketing second. Short millions.
Well, do you, how much are they kind of like, are you getting, we talk a lot about marketing and distribution here, and I don't know how much you've kind of been, a part of that. Is there any insights you've had in terms of the way they're promoting it and the way that things that you've seen on your side?
That's the frustrating thing, how little you were a part of that. Because the weird thing is, like, this movie costs like $5 million, but to market a movie, you need way more than that. So, like, the marketing budget is many times the actual movie budget for a project like this. And they I don't know. I mean, you just have to hope that they know what they're doing, because they cut the trailers, they make the posters, and they do all that thing, all of those things. I mean, they'll show it to you, and you can sort of say what you want, but ultimately they do their thing. They know the marketing. Like that's one thing I've been sort of trying to say, that this movie is more fun. Like the trailer is very traditional horror movie, but it actually is a bit more fun, more of a fun movie. Which I told marketing, like, isn't there a way to get that in there for the next trailer? Right. And it's more like, just no, like, this is how you market a horror movie. It's like, all right, I guess.
Well, is there the feeling that they've like just done it so many times? They're like, we know what we're doing. Just, quiet down. We'll put it all together. And we've done this a million times. We've made $1 bazillion, and this is how it is.
And I mean, yeah, they have made $1 gazillion.
Yeah.
So I guess they know what they're doing, But and that's the same thing. Like if I were to cut a trailer, you probably wouldn't see a lot, because I was like, no, we can't give that away. Can't give that away. So it's like, I guess you got to have someone who's more sort of, now we know how this works. Like, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my favorite is always like, if you look back at the original Alien ads, and it just had an egg hatching, and I'm a big fan of that, and that's one of the things I like about your shorts as well, is that it just has, I'm working on a short right now, and I keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and I keep adding people, and I'm like, no, I gotta get it down to just the basic idea, I think that's one of the things that your short also really inspires people to think about. It's like, look, we were just sitting around the apartment one day, and we were like, okay, let's come up with some ideas that are scary, and let's just shoot it,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like that, but I'm characterizing it like that.
Yeah, no, but I think a lot of people, they have like feature ideas, but they only have resources for a short, so they try to compress feature ideas into a very short amount of time. And I think, I mean, at least the way Lotta and I make them, it's just a scene or two, So it's not really trying to tell such a big story. We're just going in for, a couple of scenes and making the best we can out of that.
Right. Do you consciously think, I mean, when you were making Lights Out, the short, was it just like, okay, we know people are sitting, how much are you thinking about your audience? Are you like, okay, let's make this. I know people don't have any sort of attention span. There's a bunch of little horror shorts out there. Are you thinking about that? I mean, are you just like, okay, let's come up with something that people can click on real quick and just watch something fast?
Yeah, it's just get straight to the point. Just have her flip that light switch as early as you can. She's just walking from the bathroom and right there, to just get straight into it. Because once they see that, they get sort of like, oh, that's cool. And then they're hooked, They want to see where it takes off from there. There's just a lot you can cut out of both shorts and features, and still, that you don't need. I mean, you still have to have a good pace and a good rhythm to it, but I think movies today are too long. So Lights Out, it's actually like, I think it's like 80 minutes or something. So, and one of the producers was kind of freaking out about that. He was like, it has to be longer. It's like, why? And, people have seen it. No one has said that it's too short or that the pacing is weird or something. It just feels right.
Yeah.
And, I wish more films were like 90 minutes instead of the 2.5 hour things we get nowadays.
It makes you wonder how many movies are like, you see all these movies that come out, all these blockbusters and everything, and it's like, it was just like maybe 10 minutes a little too long. And you wonder if that was like some executive in there going, yeah, we need to add a little bit more. And it was just like, why? But it's like
it's weird,
the movie could have ended.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because, I mean, if they have shorter movies, they can have more showings in a day and they'll make more money. But maybe it's something, everything has to be epic these days, I guess.
No. What are you sick of seeing in horror movies? What turns you off to if you're watching something and you're just like, okay, within like, say the first 15 minutes, what does a horror movie has to do in the first 10-15 minutes to kind of like pull you in?
Well, I mean, as long as they don't have really stupid characters that you just like, you don't want a horror movie where you want the people to die. You know, I mean, that can be fun in certain movies, but stuff like that, and just
Yeah.
and the fake kind of jump scares with just loud sounds with stuff that has nothing to do with the horrors of the film. Yeah, but yeah.
Do you watch, like, do you click around like Netflix and stuff like that and try to find new stuff? It just seems like there's, I mean, one of the things that we talk about, you know, and I've talked to a lot of indie filmmakers who are, you know, making all different levels of, you know, they make stuff that, you know, very low budget from a couple $1,000s to 50,000 to 100, or, you know, in that range. And, you know, I just kind of try to figure out like what's the whole process, you know, where are they selling it? What's that world like, you know? And,
yeah, I mean, for the last year or so, I mean, since we came to LA, we haven't had a television, so we haven't been able to watch a lot of stuff just on our laptops. But the good thing about living in LA is that you can see a lot of limited release, smaller movies. So,
right.
like, I some of my favorites recently were Green Room, which I loved, and The Invitation, which was really good as well. No, but
I'm
I
dying
mean,
to see The Green Room. Dying to see.
yeah, I love that one. No, but that and that's actually like I go, since we don't have a TV, we go more to the theaters these days, because we live right by an ArcLight, so it's great. But a lot of movies, it's just feels like the same, you know, like it's all the same sort of superhero stories and stuff like that. So it's almost at points you get like, oh, I'm kind of tired of movies. But then you see a movie like Green Room, it's like, no, I love movies, you know?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Netflix is, I try to find stuff there, but usually you just, Netflix is just for scrolling through, looking at movies and then never watching anything. Feels like.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting the way things are changing now, you know, and I try as much as possible to see stuff in the theater, but, you know, and especially down here, we just don't get a lot, but, it's just kind of watching the evolution. You know, when I was younger, you would go see a movie because the quality was much better. That was the only opportunity you had, you know, and then it would go to, you know, home video was even kind of like a new thing, you know, and things have changed so quickly. So everybody's watching, you know, the majority of people are going to see your film on a TV, which kind of sucks, you know, because it's made for being in a theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, and there's this giant kind of glut of, now that the technology is so cheap, there's just horror movies like crazy coming out. You know, I mean, if you go on like Amazon Prime and Netflix and all these different places, it's like, and the quality's, a lot of them is just not very good. So I don't really have a point. It's just bitching about it, I guess.
No, but I mean, that's the sad truth is that 90% of horror movies are pretty terrible, and which is kind of sad because nowadays, like now that I mean, this last year and now I've been working so much that it's almost like I don't really want to take chances, you know. I want to see something that I know is good. So, yeah, I mean, and especially now that I'm making movies, I'm actually trying to watch a lot of classics because I want to see something that I know is good and something that's sort of valuable. So I've been watching old stuff like Fritz Lang's M and Yojimbo and just, you know, trying to
I mean,
cool stuff.
Kurosawa, I don't know if you're like me, but I find it's so inspiring to kind of see those stories and be like, oh, you know, do you get inspired? Like when you watch other people's movies, do you start having your own ideas about things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, is that let me just ask you this kind of blank question in terms of creativity. Like have you learned to kind of like control your creativity and learn how to use it and put it together and stuff? And do you do things that you know are going to kind of jolt that creativity?
I don't know. I don't have a specific process. It just sort of comes up, I guess. I love sort of idea-based things, especially sort of time travel movies and sort of that has a neat ID at the core of it. But yeah, I'm not really sure what the ideas come from.
Do you write things down? I mean, do you like, if you're, you said you wake up in the middle of the night sometimes. Is that what, do you get ideas sometimes that way? Or
Yes.
Okay.
No, just a little while ago, I had this, I dreamed this whole scene, and I woke up and I wrote it down on my phone, and then the morning after, I sent that to the screenwriter for Annabelle 2. I was like, hey, can we put this in the movie? And he was like, because I wrote, like, I had this dream of this
banana
scene,
monkey face, put it in the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell are you talking about, man?
Yeah, and I wrote out this whole scene and sent it to him, and he was like, why don't I have dreams like this? Just get a whole scene, put it in the movie. No, so that's actually in the script. It's in the script.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, one of the things that, there was a book out not too long ago that talked about how the state of mind that you're in just as you wake up is so far into your right brain that is, you will never find a more purely creative moment than when you're in that kind of dream state, because you're in the same state of mind when you dream. So your mind is just creating stuff. So that's why a lot of people always have like a pad and paper beside the bed, or people write when they first wake up,
That kind of explains a lot, because I do have that a lot of being sort of half awake, half asleep. Usually it's sort of nightmarish stuff. And I freak out, and like my wife will have to go, no, you're dreaming, like get back to sleep. So maybe that's where a lot of it is born.
Yeah. Well, David, I really appreciate this, man. Is there anything else that we could touch on? Is there any advice that you have for all the indie filmmakers that are out there, kind of like hoping to emulate you a little bit, or kind of follow in your path a bit?
I mean, the main advice would just be to keep making stuff and putting it up online, and not giving up even though you think it's going to be shit, because you never know. And and you never know what it is that's going to resonate with people. Like, I was talking to this producer who made this big Kickstarter project, like this big like series of videos that they had quite a budget for, and nothing really happened with it. And then with his friends, he just did like a quick YouTube thing that cost no money, and that's what got them representation in Hollywood and got into a bunch of meetings and stuff. So you just keep making stuff, and you never know what's gonna be the thing that actually gets you out there.
Yeah, that's one of the, after doing this for like a year and a half, and I had a project that fell apart a couple years ago, and I just, it's really inspiring, the stuff that you did and with your short and everything. But it's just like that seems to be the common thread with people who are having success in the indie film world now, is just, okay, start making shorts. Just get out there, start shooting. It doesn't matter, shoot with your DSLR or whatever. It's like the equipment doesn't matter anymore. And just slowly, not all of us are going to get like picked up for a major film, but it's like just slowly one short, a little, and learn. I mean, were you, each short that you did, were you learning a little bit more and kind of saying, okay, I put this together now, let me try it a little bit more? Right.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I'm 35 now, and I've been making movies since I was 8, so it's right. You get better and better, and you learn more and more the whole time. So, yeah.
Well, cool. Is there, do you want to, usually I ask people if they want to leave their like websites and information. I don't know if there's anything that you want to leave, or like your Twitter handle maybe, so people can kind of follow you.
Yeah, I'm at Pony Smasher on Twitter and on Instagram, and on YouTube I'm Pony Smasher as well.
Should I ask what that meant?
Well, it all started with YouTube. I mean, when YouTube was this new thing, I signed up for that, but it wasn't a thing yet. So it's like, I don't know if I'm going to use this. I'll just, okay, I'm Pony Smasher. And then it became a thing. So it's like, okay, I guess I'm Pony Smasher now. So, yeah, it's kind of weird now that they're like the marketing people, or like when there's articles and stuff on Twitter about Lights Out, you have at Teresa Palmer or whatever, and then at Pony Smasher. It's like, oh. But James.
Well, I mean, it could have been worse, you know. It could have been like gorilla penis or something. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
okay.
actually-
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time, and you know, this is just kind of amazing information for indie filmmakers out there, and I really look forward to not only